When George called for his mama, he called on me too. If you are a mama bear, no one fucks with our babies, even our grown, gentle cubs who, like George Floyd, were 6'6" and played college football and basketball.
Dear Family is a podcast hosted by Rachel Steinman, a writer, an educator, and a mental health advocate. And Rachel gets us up close and personal, so we feel a strong connection, familiarity, and comfort with her guests. So settle in and join us as we search for true healing and journey with Rachel and her most interesting guests.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I am about to share a short solo podcast based on an essay that I wrote regarding George Floyd and all the mamas that he summoned when he called out for his mama. I just wanted to let you know that I'm kind of in shock that this is podcast number 48 and it's almost been a year since I started this journey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing and following me on all the social media platforms at Right Now Rachel. That's right with a W. I just want to say I wish you continued love and happiness and success and good mental and physical health, and let's all look out for one another. Without further ado, here is the essay I wrote called All Mothers Were Summoned When He Called for His Mama. George Floyd summoned all mothers. The moment our babies are born, our hearts expand in ways we never thought possible. Love swells to infinite spaces we didn't know existed. After our newborn wails after inhaling its first breath, we exhale with relief. We instantly begin to consider their safety, with the underlying desire for them to inherit and to have a bright future. Instinctually, we become mama bears who will do anything in our power to protect our beloved cubs. We make sure they are being properly nourished as we breastfeed or bottle feed. We wonder, are they sleeping soundly and safely? Warned against rolling on top of them or suffocation from a blanket or a crib bumper. We fret about our toddlers putting every damn thing in their mouths that could block their windpipe the moment they begin to crawl. Before we know it, we transition to watch in horror and in pride as our fearless adolescents test their limits by climbing up or jumping from a height that looks unsafe. When our teens temporarily and developmentally push us away to find their desired independence as they venture into the big world with driver's licenses, we know their frontal lobes haven't completely developed, so we pray they will come home safe. Our hearts continue to expand and explode as our babies turn young adults, move through milestones, hiccups and all. To this day, I still joke about my youngest daughter that she has 9 lives, not including all the water bottle caps that I had to fish out of her mouth before she turned 1. Her near-death experiences, well, they began when she was 15 months old, and many of you know this story, when she decided to chew on a clear glass Christmas ornament when no one was watching at a holiday party. We had to rush her to the emergency room with blood dripping down her face, fearful that shards of glass would puncture her intestines. She'd go on to stick keys in an electrical socket, and at 4 years old, she'd get lost while we camped near a lake, and it required a search party to spread out to find her. She fell down an entire flight of stairs. She severely burned her chin from a searing hot pan the second it came out of the oven. She cracked her eye and then later her head, requiring stitches at the ER. She got her fingers stuck in a pipe, and she even swallowed the liquid from a glow stick, which was not my first call to poison control. Once the scars they were formed, we were able to move past the temporary trauma, and it made for good family lore fodder. But what I never had to worry about was the color of her skin. Larcenia Floyd's gentle giant of a son, George, showed me that my heart and my mind still had opening to do. George Floyd, laying prostrate and gasping for air as he called for his mama, it was a heartbreaking call to all white mothers to take a deeper look at the history of systemic racism. What I know now is I can and I will use my white privilege to protect all of our babies and to never forget Black Lives Matter. Regardless of race, socioeconomic status, religion, sexuality, or age, if you are a mama bear, no one fucks with our babies, even our grown, gentle cubs who, like George Floyd, were 6'6" and played college football and basketball. Although I continue to worry about raising young women in our beautiful and complicated 21st century world, I realize now people of color have an added layer of stress and anxiety I will never experience, but I am committed to acknowledging. I have never lost sleep about my maternity care, whereas Black women, they're 3 times more likely to die during childbirth. I never had to give my children the, quote, talk about how to deal with police interactions, or even had to explain why our Band-Aids didn't match their skin color. I never had to agonize how we couldn't go to the doctor because we didn't have health insurance, or had to explain why my girls' teachers and their doctors didn't look like them. I never had to convince the search party that my daughter's disappearance wasn't because of something I did. I never had to worry about what happened when my young kids went from being cute to threatening as they grew taller. On May 25th, 2020, a man the entire world would come to know, named George Floyd, was arrested for passing a counterfeit $20 bill at a grocery store. A viral video would not just show the inequities of our justice system and police brutality, it would highlight how the pandemic hit people of color's communities disproportionately higher. Captured on video for the world to see was the ugly reality of a cruel and heartless policeman kneeling on Larcenia's baby's neck. The desperate cry from a dying man to his mother would be echoed into our souls and spread across the globe, pulling on every, or at least most, mother's heartstrings. Mama, we heard George call to a woman who died 2 years earlier, a sacred invocation, like a prayer invoking God's presence because mothers are our first protectors. When George Floyd called out for his mama, he called out to a collective sisterhood of women, forcing us privileged white mothers to examine why one child is being protected while another is not. I love this quote by Colette Flanagan. An insult to one mother is an insult to all mothers. I can't help but be fearful for my now teenage daughters who are leaving their warm, safe cocoon and venturing out into the big, uncertain, and most beautiful world. And I won't pretend to know what that added anxiety and stress feels like to be a Black mother who fears for her child's safety from the police. I will never have to worry about my precious daughters going into a store to buy candy, or playing in a park, or walking down a street only to be stopped by the police who are meant to protect them. White women are systemically who the police have protected. They're considered the least threatening and if pulled over, the least likely to face charges. This is a matter of white privilege, one I was aware of, but felt like the issue was too large for me to do something about. But now I am naming it publicly, which I believe is a start. When George Floyd called for his mama, he reignited a sisterhood that reminds us that it was only 101 years ago when women got the right to vote. George Floyd has awoken all of us mama bears' collective strength, a strength women have that is gentle but extra powerful. I see that intelligence and strength that comes from the future mothers who are my bright and brilliant daughters. Their leadership, it comes from a place of compassion and kindness, what we all need more of. When George Floyd's precious and beautiful daughter, Gianna, announced that her daddy changed the world, every mother's heart expanded with love to deep parts of our soul. We cried tears of sadness because she'd have to grow up seeing images of her father's despicable death and the cruel fact that he was taken away from her. But we also cried tears of happiness because her daddy did and will continue to change the world by bringing a global awareness of the need for justice and love for all. I picture George looking down at his daughter and Larcenia looking down at her granddaughter with immense pride and hope for her future. What also makes this mama cry is how proud I am of my daughters. My oldest, who will be old enough to vote in November. The soon-to-be 18-year-old, she continues to educate me on how to use my privilege to be a white ally. She educated me on how it's my responsibility to educate others on the importance of being an anti-racist. She also showed me the difference between overt white supremacy, which is socially unacceptable, like using the N-word or blackface, versus covert white supremacy, which is more socially acceptable, like expecting people of color to educate others or saying things like, but all lives matter. Because it was so very important for my soon-to-be voter to protest with her handmade Black Lives Matter poster, I allowed her to march in Hollywood with her friends. But because I am still a mama bear and I'm still worried about COVID, I made sure she wore a mask and glasses, had hand sanitizer at her ready, and did her absolute best to social distance. I will admit, I tracked her on her phone until she came home safely. When George called for his mama, he called on me too. I'm committed to making sure we get everyone out to vote like a mother. I'm going to actively befriend people of color and do my best to support their businesses. I'm going to use my writing and my podcasting platform to highlight people of color's voices. I'm going to do my best to acknowledge my implicit bias and call myself out when I am stereotyping unconsciously. I'm going to look at every person as an individual with their own personal story while remembering we all want the same things in life: love, happiness, family, friends, purpose, nourishment, shelter, health, community, education, justice, and safety. George was laid to rest next to his mama. I know Larcenia welcomed him with open arms, a mother's embrace, a big mama bear hug like no other. I imagine she said, "You changed the world." Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to read the essay or see the corresponding images that are very moving, please check it out in the show notes. Take care, everyone, and also look out for others. This is Rachel Steinman. For more information or to contact me with any questions, comments, or guest ideas, please check out rightnowrachel.com. That's right with a W. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and sharing, dear family. And if you found value in what you've just heard, I would love and so appreciate a great review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, I wish you love, happiness, and good mental health.